A very good afternoon to all my dear viewers, and welcome to another Disruptive Education Live Talk with Getty or Global Education and Training Institute. And today we have with us a very special guest, Mrs. Shwetangana Santram, with her vast experience in teaching English at secondary and senior secondary levels for both ICSE and CBSE curriculum. She is a self motivated leader with strong communication skills, keen to work with varied groups and help improve their interpersonal skills. Ma'am Shwetangana has worked as a team leader and guide for varied groups of different ages, from mentoring and motivating young minds through life skills, career counseling, and personality development workshops, to initiating brainstorming sessions with teachers innovate and improve their teaching methodology. Ma'am Shwetangana is also a certified global career counselor from UCLA and has been guiding and helping many students in the past couple of years to recognize their potentials and passions. And she feels that sound career choices and ideas need to be put into a child's mind as early as possible, around ages of 13 to 14 years. So the child has the time and opportunity to research and comprehend the value in more detail. Well, she truly believes that we need a revolution in our education, and creativity is the main ingredient to bring that change. Creativity. And for this, she has been keenly involved in the counseling and motivation of the faculty of school. So, and for that little dose of motivation, she is with us today. We need this most of the time. We all need, not only me, not only you, but we all need this. And keeping in mind, she has given us her precious time to talk on how the crisis will take us ahead. So, without much ado, I would request ma'am to please take over the session and very warm welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Preena, and of course, a big thank you to the team at Getty and Ma'am Sunita Gandhi for giving me this platform where I can, share my ideas and my thoughts with a huge audience. I've been used to, talking to a group of people in probably a little hall or maybe a slightly bigger auditorium. But with the way things are going now, I think the platform is huge. We get this social media as a place where we can, share our ideas and share our views. So I'm really grateful to each of you and the team to have given me this opportunity. And I do hope that this little session that we're going to have right now on how crisis can take us ahead is going to help motivate each of us. Not just, it is not just for me to motivate you, but by speaking to each one of you, I will also in the other way, in a different way, be motivated by, your responses and by your feedbacks and by your suggestions, your ideas and your views, which you can always share with us through the chat or, even later on Facebook. I really appreciate that. And I would love to see those. So, not taking much of your time, I'll like to move ahead with what we are going to be talking about today. So, let me start with, what is pretty cliche now, of course, with so many months gone by. But I think, words like challenging, difficult, unimaginable, and absolutely, heart-rendering. These are the kind of, words that we have been using for this particular year, the great 2020 that we've had. And, it has been a difficult year, of course, yes. And it is almost, the word that I would like to again and again use today in our talk is that it has given us a crisis-like situation. And that is what is happening all around us. It is there in, the economies of the world have been disrupted, the political scenarios have been disrupted, the basic livelihood of people has been affected, and it has, really created a very, very challenging situation, which is almost on the verge of a crisis. So, I'll just take a sec pause and just share my screen, because I just like us to go through a little bit of a slideshow that I have prepared, just to, have a little thing on the side. I hope, Reena ma'am, that's good to go.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
All right. So, we all know that, that anything that happens around us, it creates a sort of a ripple effect. And if I think about it, it's not just the year 2020. Of late, maybe in the past 40, 50 years, there has been a lot of disturbance that is happening in our education system. Every little, that little tiny virus has caused such an amazing ripple effect around us, which is becoming the greatest challenge for us this year. But it is not just that. Each and every stone that has been thrown into us, into this whole world, be it, like I've put these pictures here, be it the wars that are there happening in various parts of the world, children having to live in refugee camps, children, who have been disrupted from their, or displaced from their society, from their community, from their countries. They are having to move out. And all of this takes a very, very big toll on the child and the education system wherever we may be in the world. That is what has been happening. And at the end of the day, it is the child that is the learner and the facilitator who is the educator. They are both at the end of, the suffering end, because the teachers are not getting the good time and a good platform, or a mentally sound child whom they can develop. And on the other hand, the child himself or herself is going through various traumas that they need to, comprehend, to take on, to, really adapt and change themselves to. So, but yes, the most prominent, or the, let's say, the issue which has, touched each and every one, because yes, a war or a area of a refugee camp or these sort of things are probably, certain areas that this might be happening. But this pandemic, if I may just say it, is probably being a unifying factor for us all because it has affected each one of us. It hasn't, bothered with whether you were a superpower or you are a developing country. It has affected each and every person, and it has forced us to sort of, rethink education. Rethinking education has been forced upon us, as I say in this slide. And because, the children are going to have a very, very different sort of, the environment of an educational institution now than what you and I probably had, or even the children till the year 2020 who passed out from school have had. So it's going to be a very, very, different scenario that is going to be there. And yes, it is not a very exciting and not a very happy one, because as you can see, this is what is going to be the changed face of school life. All the, what I have in this middle, the way we used to enjoy sitting together in the playrooms, in the classrooms, is not going to be, really permitted. Now we'll be sitting with distances, we will be walking around with masks, we can't even show our smiling faces to each other, and it's is going to be a difficult time. At the end of the day, what happens is that uh, everything which is, causing a lot of problem for us, we tend to, try to adapt, we tend to try to see what is good. And I think as an educator, as a educationist, I feel that the only way that we can, move ahead, go on with how things are, change, adapt, evolve, is if we have a positive mindset. If we, as the people who are in the authority to bring about the change, are the ones who are going to be, hopeful, we are the ones who are going to be positive, we are the ones who are going to be a little bit more enlightened and emboldened to take on the steps that are required, that is the only way that, we will be able to move ahead. And coming to the real topic that we have today is, it was at one such time some months back when, we were all in the middle of a lockdown, and I was sitting and thinking about this situation, and I was talking with some people. it sort of came to me as a just out of, you can say, absolute agitation, that how do we deal with this crisis, what do we do with it. And I somehow, because as a personal motto, you can say, a self motto, I always like to say that try to see the silver lining. And in fact, I tell my children that if you don't see a silver lining, try to find it. And if you still can't find it, create one. So there, because there is a silver lining and you have to ensure that it is there. So it was at one such time that I decided, and I told myself that crisis is what I'm going to make us go ahead. And that is what brought me to this topic today. And when I say crisis, I'm actually talking about the CRISIS. That is what I am emphasizing upon. It's an acronym that I have created more out of, it started with a jest to the word, but now, of course, I take it a little more seriously and I try to share it with as many people as I can, because I feel that it is probably one of the best way to deal with anything, that you take it head on. And that is how I think we'll try to do it today. So, without taking much of your time, everybody, I like to just, jump straight into this acronym and start with our first alphabet that we have in this, and that is the C. The C of the crisis, which can otherwise make us cry, is what I say is all about creativity and critical thinking. If each one of us can, bring, imbibe these skills, not just as adults who are facilitating education, or as the educators or the ones who are making policies for education, but also try to put this in our students. If we can have creative students and students who can think critically, I think we will be able to deal with a lot of issues that come along the way. Creativity, if I may just try to define it, it actually, what does it mean? It means that it is the ability of a person or a group of people to be able to make something new, something valuable, something useful. It can even be just the process of trying to make that. We might not ultimately make it, but it is just the process as well also of making something new and useful. And it basically means that you open your mind to something new. That is what creativity means. And if you see the Bloom's taxonomy, also the ultimate aim of education, if you move up the pyramid, is creativity. That is what we want our children and our, the future generation to achieve. One person whom I admire a lot, I'm sure a lot of my friends here would also be will agree with me, is Sir Ken Robinson. And I especially admire a lot about his talks on what he gave about creativity. And what got me thinking with his ideas was that he says that creativity is as important as literacy. Even though we may say that, some of us say that creativity cannot be taught, but yes, creativity, it cannot be taught because creativity does not have a curriculum, it does not have a syllabi, it does not have a post term examination. But creativity can always be encouraged. It can be blossomed in a child if we give them the correct environment, if we give them the correct opportunities, if we give them the correct inspiration, and most of importantly, mentoring by a creative teacher. If they get that, I think the children will be able to do that, and that will open their minds. Once your mind is opened, that is when the critical thinking comes in, because you cannot be thinking critically if you have a very, very closed or a blocked thought process. So once you start thinking logically, you start making connections between ideas, you start questioning things, that what is going to be the impact of something, how is it going to affect me, what is the how and when and why and what of everything. That is when the analysis comes in. And I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking to myself that why both these things are important. Because creativity is like magic, and critical thinking is logic. And I think we all agree that we need a little bit of both in our lives. our lives would be very, very meaningless if we did not have magic and logic to help us go about. So, for us as teachers or facilitators, first thing we have to do is get our creative antennas up and, try to create the environments where my child can, be bring out the creativity that they need. And of course, then, try to give them that opportunity that they can question things that are happening around them. Another thing, last point that I'll say about this particular alphabet is that another very important reason why critical thinking is very important in today's time and age is because the children of today, and even us, we are surrounded by too much information. There was a time when there was very little information, but now there is just too much information. They just pick up any social media platform and they can question and ask things, but only a child who has been able to utilize their mind critically will be able to sort of sieve that information, that what is the right and what is the wrong, what is the good, what is the bad, what is the authentic, what is the fake. And that is again a challenge that is there upon us as again I would say as educators, that we have to ensure that our children are able to do that. The world today needs a lot of empathy, and only a creative and a critical thinking human being can be empathetic. So that is what I feel, that the C, the first alphabet of our word crisis, we counter it with creativity and critical thinking. So I hope that you all would sort of agree with me there. And with that, then now I like to move to my next alphabet, which also happens to be the favorite of mine, and that is resilience. You can see that I've made a very bold R over there, because resilience is that, you stand firm. You are there. You have an opinion, you stand firm to it. You have a thought, you stand firm with it, and you're ready to take on any challenge that comes to you. So it is definitely my favorite alphabet in the acronym, because one, I feel it is the primary skill that is required. It will take care of all the others that we'll discuss right now. If I'm not resilient, I will probably not be able to last in my creativity and critical thinking and the other alphabets, as we'll discuss. So it becomes very, very important. Another reason why resilience is very important, if we just convert it into a slightly different way of looking at it, resilience also sort of entails the mental health of the children. Now, in the beginning, I spoke about that it is not just this pandemic and the lockdown and the no school that is happening right now in most parts of the world that is the problem. We've had problems in the education system for many years now. We have children who are, who have lost their homes to war and terrorism. We have children who have lost their countries and their identity because they are living as refugees in different parts of the world. So somewhere or the other, the children are being affected since very long. And if I want to educate a child in my classroom, I cannot do that till the child's mental health is good. The child is willing to learn. The child is, has a desire to learn. And for all that, I have to make the child resilient enough that the child is ready to take on a challenge, ready to accept a setback, ready to adapt to any kind of critical change that might suddenly be, thrown upon him or her, and stand up again and move forward. As is very beautifully explained in the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling, that if everything falls around you and you can just put it all together and you stand up again, that is what resilience will always mean. So resilience is another very important thing. First, as teachers, we need to become resilient, that come what may. And teachers have shown it. I think most of us will agree that all over the world, teachers have shown that they are an amazing lot of people. They have been the most resilient. Even the WHO and the UNESCO and every UNICEF, they've all been praising the, the fraternity of educators all over the world for, having, stepped up for this pandemic that has taken a toll on all our children. And that is what is there. So we lead by example. So if the teacher is a resilient teacher, the teacher is, going to be able to, show resilience in his or her demeanor, then definitely we will be able to, sort of pass it on to our children, be able to make them understand that, there will be problems in life, there will be challenges in life. This is what the world is all about today. Things are changing at the snap of a finger, and you have to be willing to accept the change and make the most of it. It's not just that, accept it and sit back. You have to accept the change and then relearn and relearn and stand up again and try to do the best that you can. That is where resilience comes in. And when children, get that, resilience, what will happen at the end of the day is that the next generation, that is going to be a more resilient generation, I hope and pray, they will be able to, deal with all these, problems that we have around us, whether it is, uh, wars and, terrorism or sickness or displacements or marginalization. All those, the children are going to be, more, they will stand up and speak up about them, speak out against them or for them as per their opinions. And that is what is going to ensure that, we can make hope for a better world ahead of us. So, as I said, resilience being my very, very favorite word, and I feel that, we need to ensure that that carries forward. All the other four alphabets that we have in this particular acronym, of course, there are two of each. There are two I's and two S's that are left. So we'll start with the first I, and the first I is innovation. Now, innovation is something that means that you are trying to, create something, but not just, out of anywhere or top of your hat. All you're actually trying to do is that you're trying to apply your acquired knowledge to make something, that apply the acquired knowledge, and that is when, what have you learned and what you apply, that together becomes innovation. And innovation is what is, I know that it is a very overused term at times, because, wherever you look here and there, everyone is saying that, oh, we are very innovative, whether it is a, a multinational company, or it's a startup, or it's, even in the school, we come up with, oh, this child is very innovative and this teacher is very innovative. We use this word a lot, actually, and I think it is important, because, innovation is the requirement. It is a step to evolution, and until unless you innovate, you cannot evolve. It is something that is always necessary. We have to do that. And but the most important reason why innovation is important is because until and unless we are able to create an atmosphere where a child can apply the knowledge they have learned in a very creative, interesting, exciting way, the children are not going to want to learn, which I feel today becomes the biggest challenge for a lot of us teachers. That, the children are there, we are willing to teach them, we are willing to facilitate their education, we are willing to, give out the information or the knowledge that we have, but a child is not very receptive. And the reason for that is because the method in which it is being given out to the child is not as exciting. So that is where the innovation comes in. If we are going to be able to innovate our methodology, if we are able to innovate our whole concept as to how we deal with the child, that is where I think the learning can improve. And for that, I'll just simply give an example that we see that I'm associated with a CBSE school, so I know that CBSE has a portal. In fact, they keep having certain competitions also about best practices by teachers in different schools. The idea is what? That teachers come up and share their best practices with the other fraternity of educators. And with that exchange, each of us can help the other become innovative in various ways. We have things that are coming up in our NEP and in our education policies about integration of subjects. We talk about involving art education into this thing. That's something which I love talking about, that bring the STEAM back into STEM. That is another thing that I love talking about, that how you can bring art into maybe a science subject or maybe a computer subject or whatever. So that is where the application of the knowledge acquired becomes innovation, and then that innovation leads to an evolution, and that evolution will always help us to overcome any crisis that can fall upon us. So that is what I feel is the requirement for us to innovate. That is where I'd like us to go. The first S that we have over here is basically self. So, and I have divided the self into two parts, that is self motivation and self discipline. Now, discipline is, very rightly said by, I'm not very sure who had said this, but I was reading it somewhere, that discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. We set a lot of goals for ourselves, but we are not really able to accomplish them at times because we are not disciplined enough. And in order to be disciplined enough to be able to move in the direction of our goals, we need a lot of motivation. That motivation can come from outside sources, but the best motivation comes from self, comes from within. Self motivation contributes to self discipline, and self discipline is what I feel contributes to the making of a better self. And first, we have to make ourselves better. And only when I am better, if I feel that I am, I'm satisfied with myself, I am comfortable with myself, I am happy with who I am, only then can I sort of, pass it on to another person. I can, and in our case, as educators, or even as some parents or children who are listening to this, we are passing it on to each other. It is a give and take situation. I become a better person because I interact with another person, and the other person might learn something from me. So that is how we have to, transfer our whole motivation, our willpower into each other, and then that is how we become self-motivated. A very interesting thing that I can say with the scenario that we face at times as people sitting in the management, that a lot of times people are coming in to apply for jobs for becoming teachers because they probably didn't know what else to do, so they just thought that, okay, let's become a teacher. Now there is one teacher like that in your maybe in your organization, and there is another person who probably was one of those children in school whom you even asked, right, maybe from class 5 or 6, that what will you grow up to become, and that child always said, I'll be a teacher. Now there is a difference between the two self motivations. There is a major difference between the two. That self motivated teacher who chose this vocation because he or she wants to be a teacher, that teacher's output, that teacher's, what we have done till now, that teacher's creativity, that teacher's resilience, that teacher's innovation is going to be marked different from the one who was not very self motivated. So at the end of the day, if we want us to be a better human being, be a better self, then that motivation and discipline towards the vocation I've chosen. Some of you listening over here, maybe the parents, you are you might be doing some other we might be in some other profession. Somebody might be a doctor, somebody might be a high management person in a multinational company. Wherever you may be, you have chosen your vocation because you wanted to do that vocation. So in that vocation, you can only excel. Any crisis or any challenge that is thrown upon you, you will only be able to take care of it if you are motivated enough. And if you're motivated enough, you're going to be a very disciplined person. You will move towards your, goals, and be able to finally see them through as accomplishments. And only if you are disciplined about it. This is a skill that really needs to be instilled in our children today, that they are self disciplined and self motivated. Very easily, the children get wavered by peer pressure. They get very easily, they deflect from their goals because of, any kind, the various kind of distractions that are around them. So, this is where the challenge comes for us, that we are able to put ourselves with our children, with our students, and be able to understand the crisis in their lives, so that we are able to help them to become better selves. That is what I feel is very, very necessary. The second I that we have is a very interesting one. Some of you might even question that why we didn't put it as the first I, because that is imagination. I wanted to put imagination a little lower down because innovation is more of let's say a more of a scientific outcome. Imagination is more dreamlike. But believe it or not, when I was doing a little bit of research on this being imaginative, I came across a very interesting quote by none other than Albert Einstein. And some of you might think, Albert Einstein, the great physicist, the great scientist, what has he got to do with imagination? Because, we always think imagination is fiction and paintings and beautiful, prose and, verses and things like that. That is where, in arts, that is where imagination lies. So there were two reasons why I'm going to be quoting Albert Einstein right now is because one is for you all to understand what I just said, that uh, we have to ensure that there is some kind of magic in everything that we do. And he said that imagination is the highest form of research. Now that is absolutely amazing, because if you really look at it, everything even in science was once imagined. The only difference is that the people with that imagination were able to apply their knowledge and the scientific know-how and maybe make that a reality. But anything what is real today was once imagined. So that is why he says that imagination is the highest form of research. So if we want to instill better things for the future, if we want some innovations to be done for the future, we want some kind of more creative ideas to come out for the future, imagination is what needs to be encouraged. And imagination has no boundaries. You can have no boundaries with imagination, because there is a very interesting story which I'm sure some of you must have heard also, that once a teacher asked the children that okay, you please paint a picture of a garden. So the children started painting, and they were all making things, and this teacher was taking rounds, and suddenly she goes to one child and says that that why are you making flowers blue? Flowers are always that it's in pre-primary, so the teacher was probably not a very imaginative teacher. So the teacher said, why aren't you making your flowers red? Why are they blue? So the child was like, but in my garden they are blue. So, that is where what is imagination. The child insists that no, in my garden, which is probably a garden in his or her mind, the flowers are blue. And who, why not? That is how, and if that teacher went on and said that, that's excellent, why not? I'd love to see a garden like that. That would be a teacher who encourages. But if there would be a teacher who tells the child that no, you know, that is absolutely impossible, then we are curbing the imagination. So whether we are giving flight to our students' imagination or we are making boundaries to their imaginations is in our hands. And I feel that the way the world is going today, we have to ensure that the children are very, very imaginative, because we really cannot imagine what's going to happen in the world now. The way things change in the world, it is beyond our imagination. So let them think beyond our imagination. Let them create beyond our imagination, because only then can things become a reality. So I think the imagination sort of takes on everything. Coming to my last acronym, the alphabet of the acronym, I would just like to sort of, quickly recap. I'm a teacher after all, so I can't help doing that. Creativity and critical thinking, resilience, innovation, self, imagination. Why are we, talking about all these things? We are talking about all these things because we are saying that there is a crisis and I need to deal with that crisis. But where does a crisis happen? A crisis happens in my surrounding, in my society, in the place where I am. So the last alphabet that I've taken is what I feel is the crux of it all, and where our responsibility lies completely, and that is our social responsibility. By using all the other alphabets of the acronym, what I'm actually trying to encourage amongst us all is that the ultimate goal or the ultimate responsibility that lies with us is to make a socially responsible future generation. Because anything and everything that is happening in the world today can only be taken care of, or can only be dealt with, can only be reduced, can only be made better, rectified, mended, or whatever words we'd like to use, only if we have a social responsibility in its place. Anything I do, any action I take is going to have an effect on what is happening in my surroundings. We simply say that, we tell our children also when they are very small in the pre-primary classes, we are teaching them, that, accept responsibility for your actions. Be accountable for whatever happens because of your action. It's decided to do something, so now be accountable for the consequence of that. And very importantly, take ownership of your mistakes. Your mistake is your mistake, and you have to take ownership of that. So if we are able to instill these, 3-4 aspects of responsibility into our children, I think, it will probably help us to, improve a lot of problems that we have around us. Because if I think before I do anything, if I, take responsibility of every action of mine, if I know that there is going to be a consequence of my action, I will be a better citizen of this entire globe in the future. That is what I'm going to do. And at the end of the day, if you really ask me, the sole responsibility or the purpose of education is to create a socially responsible human being. That socially responsible human being might be, might be a scientist, might be a doctor, might be a cricketer, might be a musician, might be an artist, might be a CA, can be anybody. But that person has to be socially responsible, has to understand his or her responsibility towards the entire society, which is now the global village. You have to be, careful about that. I can be a politician in the future. I can be a spokesperson in the future. I can be an international relations manager in the future. I have to take on that responsibility. So the ultimate goal of our education is to make a socially responsible generation. And we have to ensure that that happens. Now, social responsibility, we hear a lot about it, from the point of view of it is something which industries have to do because they have a social responsibility fund and things like that and all that. That is true. Very, very true. I agree with that. But the point is that even to be able to utilize that fund, you first need someone who's going to be able to take on that challenge. And that challenge has to be created through the whole system of schooling and college for an individual to take on that task. But at the individual level also, I still have a responsibility towards, the economic balance of my family or my society. I have a social responsibility towards the diversity of the people around me. I might be living in a very, very diverse demographic area. So I have a responsibility towards them. I have a responsibility towards my society's morality. Every social structure that exists in the world has a different set of morality. In certain places will be liberal, certain places will be orthodox. So what is my responsibility towards that? And a very talked about social responsibility in today's time and age is the environment, because human beings are playing havoc with environment. So, and we talk a lot about the climate change and all those things. So that is another thing, and it starts with every individual. So I'm not going into the social responsibility by an industry or a organization, or the social responsibility by some political party, or some by a country or a nation. I'm talking about each individual. If each one of us can do our bit, things are going to be better. Even Mahatma Gandhi said that be the change you want to see in the world. So every single person has to start doing that. If we don't do it, we are not going to be able to achieve it. And where the environment is concerned, because like I just said, that seems to be the most interesting thing and the most talked about thing these days that we are taking care of. Margaret Thatcher, the ex prime minister of Britain, once said, and I would like to quote her here, that we haven't inherited the world from our forefathers, but we have borrowed it from our children. If that is our way of thinking towards our this earth, the only home that we have, whether it is in terms of diversity, whether it is in terms of morality, whether it is in terms of the environment, if we always understand this very simple aspect, that it is not my ownership, I don't own this place, I have not inherited it from my forefathers, but I've just borrowed it from my children, I think we will all be able to understand our social responsibility better, and we will be able to take it in a better way. So that, in a way, brings me back to our, what I was talking about, that the reason why I created this whole acronym, and that is why in the end I would just like to say that crisis is good, it is not bad. If I just change my perspective, if I stop looking at crisis as something which is a problem, which is a challenge, but instead I start telling myself that crisis teaches me to be creative, to be resilient, to be innovative, to take care of the self, to be imaginative, and to be socially responsible, I think all of us will agree, and I'm sure you will also agree, that we are ready to face any challenge, and crisis is really good. And at this time, the people who have been the epitome of this for me are the teachers. Whether it is in a refugee camp, whether it is trying to bring smiles in those children, whether it is spending time trying to make their videos for teaching online during this lockdown, wherever the case may be, with a big smile, the teachers, the educators, the facilitators have been true warriors, and they have truly shown to us that crisis is not a crisis. We can always take on its challenge and we can move forward. So it's a salute from my side to all my resilient fellow educators, that we have stood by, we have managed it. And I think this year has also given us a self that, yes, you can throw a challenge at us and we will take it on, and we will be able to do that. So that is what I would like to end, and I would like to hand over back to Ma'am Preena, that if there are any questions, we can discuss it further. So a big thank you to the team of Geti and disruptive education movement. May we keep disrupting it, may we keep innovating, and may we keep doing a good job of educating our future children. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Absolutely a big salute to all our warriors, the true warriors. I totally agree with each and every word said by you, ma'am. And a beautiful meaning given to the word crisis. I think that's quite magical, we can say. Because, as you said, if there is no silver lining you cannot find, then make one.
Yes.
And I think that's how it works. Because there's a very famous saying, difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. We all
Yes.
have heard about this.
Yes.
And that's one thought that comes in our mind when we are actually going through, we are slogging through hard times. uh, we all have been there, since lockdown during this pandemic, we all have been there. And we have to admit, like, when it was there, we were all on the verge of giving up. But I think once we come through the storm and we land on the other side, it's usually never as bad as we think, as we thought, and as we were expecting.
Yes.
So that's one beautiful thing about this entire session. I think you have given a very beautiful picture to this. and
Thank you.
and if at all, if we have any bad experience, we can say that we survived. We were lucky enough to survive. At least we are through it. So that
Yes.
was amazing. Thank you so much, ma'am. And we need to keep going. And the way the word crisis explains, it's a new, different meaning for me. And yes, we all should remember this. Very beautifully explained. We need to keep going. We need to be strong because better things will be there ahead.
That's
Um,
very true. Because they say that the most beautiful view is from the most difficult climbing. So once you've climbed the highest mountain, the most difficult mountain, you will have the best view. So this has been a difficult year and a difficult time that we are going through. And so let's hope that we all see the beautiful view very soon.
okay, I think there is some network issue. Your voice is breaking. Not a problem. I think
Okay.
otherwise the session went really well, and there are people with us ready to learn. Thank you so much to all our viewers, and thanks to you, ma'am, once again on behalf of our team. Thank you for giving us your precious time and joining us under this disruptive education movement.
Thank you
And
so much,
hopefully,
Rina.
yes, pleasure is all ours, ma'am. And hopefully, we'll have you again on this forum. And maybe we'll talk about something very exciting again.
Yes, my pleasure always. And thank you so much, everybody. And thank you once again to Prina and to the entire team. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Thank
Bye bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Bye bye.